Bray Road, as in the Beast of Bray Road, is in Wisconsin, as in right next to me here in Minnesota. Luckily for me, it's on the other side of Wisconsin. I'm Carol Ann, and welcome to the InBetween, where we tell stories of the strange and mysterious. Now, hang on tight, because here they come. The writer of this story chose to remain anonymous, so we're just going to call him Chad. Chad's grandfather owned a cabin in Scioto County, Ohio. It was an awesome place where the whole family would gather for Sunday dinners and holidays and just enjoy each other. One day, that all changes. Chad's grandfather no longer lets anybody but himself go to the cabin. And for years, Chad would ask him why the change, but he never gets an answer. When his grandfather passes away, Chad inherits the cabin of his childhood, and he's sad, of course, but he's also excited to start making new memories. But it doesn't take long for him to stop asking why his grandfather did what he did. Now, Chad often goes for walks in the woods, following game trails that are everywhere in the area. And he knows the woods like the back of his hand, so he never feels any fear or anything like that. One evening, just like any other evening, he notices an offshoot trail on one of the game paths. And it only goes back like 6 or 7 feet, and he can see that something had bedded down there. And assuming it's a deer, Chad walks into the bedded area, and then thinks to himself that this is a good ambush point for a massive creature. The hair on his arms stands up, and a chill runs down his spine. And he feels as if he's being watched, but he can't tell from where. It feels like everywhere. Since it's evening, Chad has a tracking flashlight and a gun, which he draws and keeps at the ready to try to keep his overwhelming feeling of danger at bay. Suddenly, an ungodly growl erupts to his right, like only 10 or 15 yards away. The sound is so terrifying that every muscle in his body goes weak, and it is like nothing he has ever heard before. He doesn't run right away because he doesn't want whatever's out there to think he's a threat. After a few agonizing minutes of silence, Chad turns and starts heading back on the main trail. And when he's almost home, like 5 minutes from the back door of his cabin, the creature lets out a canine howl that seems to go right through his body. At this point, Chad starts running, and as soon as he does, the creature chases him. For every 5 steps Chad takes, the DOGMAN takes just 1. This thing is fast. He hears the sounds of branches being ripped off trees behind him and is sure he can feel the vibrations of the creature's feet hitting the ground as it's running after him. Chad barely makes it to his cabin, slamming the door and locking the 2 deadbolts and the chain lock. Then he turns on his spotlight and shines it out the window into the tree line. He sees 3 sets of eyes in the trees, glowing vivid yellow with enormous black pupils. Chad feels as if the creatures can read his mind, but he's not sure. All he knows is that he's alive, and that he won't be taking night hikes anytime soon. This story was submitted by Reddit user Red-Pilled Chad. And for the sake of this story, we're going to call him Gabe. About 8 years ago, Gabe lived in Montana outside of a small rural community with a population of about 2,000. And while he's there, he gets this steal of a deal to buy this small 1-floor ranch home. His nearest neighbor is a farmer about a mile away, and he loves the solitude and quiet and everything else about the place, except the woods around the house. The woods always have this ominous feel to them, and soon after moving in, he realizes why the previous owners left so quickly. It starts with noises in the woods. And these aren't just any noises. They sound like blood-curdling screams and growls. So Gabe does a little research and learns that even something like a raccoon or a bobcat can make these unnatural noises. All right, mystery solved. But still, it just never feels right. It's hard to explain, but Gabe has never felt like this before. Something about those woods just makes him feel uncomfortable, like he's always being watched. About 2 weeks after he moves in, there's a thunderstorm. Lightning is crazy, and the thunder is loud enough to keep him awake. So Gabe is lying on the couch around 2 a.m., and he gets up and goes into the kitchen for a glass of water. Above the sink, there's a small window that looks out over his yard leading up to the tree line. When the next flash of lightning hits, he sees it. Admittedly, it's not a long view, but it's long enough for him to see that there's something lurking in his yard. It's near the tree line, just a few steps into the yard, and at first, Gabe thinks it's a bear, but he knows it isn't. It's standing on 2 legs with its face pointing toward the house. Its legs are like a dog's, and Gabe can clearly make out the hocks. It's hard to tell the color of the fur, but it's dark. Its upper body is massive, with a wide torso and arms that almost reach to the ground. And the upper body seems to dwarf the lower body. After standing there in the dark, frozen in shock, Gabe waits for the next lightning strike. But when it happens, it isn't there. It was there 1 second and gone the next. After that night, Gabe buys a gun and sleeps with it within arm's reach. Life is pretty uneventful for the next few weeks until one particular night, he's trying to watch some TV and his satellite keeps acting up. Now, for obvious reasons, he doesn't like going outside at night, but he figures this will be really quick. He just has to tweak the antenna a bit. So he grabs his gun and his flashlight and goes out the door. The first thing he notices is the eerie quietness that surrounds him. This time of year at night, the woods are active with all types of creatures. But not tonight. Despite the voice in his head screaming,
"Danger, Will Robinson! Danger!"
Gabe makes his way over to the satellite and begins to adjust it. He hears a small snap of a stick and quickly turns to his left and shines the light where the noise came from. What Gabe sees will horrify him for the rest of his life. He is immediately met with red eyes. These eyes are the color of blood, and they are evil. The head of this thing looks like a mutated German shepherd. He doesn't like to say it, but it looks like a werewolf. A long snout and pointed ears. The fur is black and shaggy in some places, and he can see this creature's extremely developed musculature, and it dwarfs even the biggest humans on Earth. It is half in and half out of the woods, almost crouching, and it still comes up to his head at 6 feet. So he estimates that this thing fully standing would have been about 8 feet tall. Gabe is about 20 feet from this creature, and the fact that he brought a gun to protect himself so he could shoot it doesn't even enter his brain. Gabe slowly backs away, never breaking eye contact with it. He gently picks up his gun, and his fight or flight reflexes kick in. He chooses flight. Maybe not the best option, but if he stays there, this thing will kill him. He runs the fastest he has ever run in his life and has no idea if it follows him or not because he doesn't turn around to find out. Gabe gets to the house, flies through the front door, locks every door and window, closes the blinds, and sits with his back against the wall, cradling the gun the entire night. He does not get even a minute of sleep that night, and very few the following few nights. To make a long story short, Gabe doesn't live there anymore. People often talk of Sasquatch being harmonious with nature and living within the ecosystem. Sure, if one sees it, it might be scary, but it's probably more awe than anything. With this thing, it's totally different for Gabe. It feels unnatural. It is sinister. It feels evil. It was stalking him, toying with him, and he believes it would have killed him. He has never seen nor experienced anything like this again. It is a memory he tries to put past him, but he still gets nightmares about it. Gabe says that until the day he dies, he will always have the image of that thing burned into his memory. I would love to live out in the country, but after hearing stories like these, I think I'll stay in the burbs. It's not a bulletproof plan, but it's better than being in the middle of nowhere where no one can hear you scream. Now, for those of you who aren't yet familiar with our beloved benefactor of a like button, when you click on him, magical things tend to happen. So I want everybody to go give it a shot. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments what crazy, awesome things happen for you. Your comment could be featured on a future video. If you are the kind of person that likes feeling the skin on your scalp tingle, click right here for even more Dogman stories. Be careful out there, and we will see you here again on the In-Between.